Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are painting a spring mini painting. I don't have the painting done already because I wanted to do it with you live, where I basically am going to walk through with you how I approach painting from a photograph and what I look for in order to break down the steps. Okay.
All right, sounds great.
And for the mini paintings, if you have followed along with us for a bit, you know that we sell these cute little frame ornaments that you can hang or, gift or something like that. And we have done a few mini paintings where we've done fall, we have a winter atmospheric landscape, we did a cute little mushroom. And then I thought we need to add spring to our little mini painting offering. So that's what we're going to do today.
Sounds great.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do our oath first, and then we will get into drawing and painting.
All right.
All right. If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me, I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
Promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now the photo that I would like to use as inspiration or my reference for when I'm painting on here is this photo. I saw it on Pinterest. It is lovely. I've painted it in my journal before. It just feels like that pastel-y, fresh kind of spring vibe that I'm going for. So whenever I have a photo and I'm trying to figure out how I go about painting it, in watercolor, you usually do one thing, which is you work light to dark. So you want to look at where your lightest values are, and that is usually like the first layers that you put in. And then like step 2 and step 3 and step 4 is essentially putting in your medium values and your dark values. Okay.
All right.
So there's that you need to think about. The other thing that you want to think about is that whenever you're painting a landscape, you always work back to front. So you try to envision all of these elements, the sky, the moon, the trees, the grass, the flowers, as planes, like planes of existence. Yes?
Right.
Our farthest one that we're going to want to put in is our sky. And then from there, we're kind of just layering forward. Okay. So we would do our sky. We would do this horizon line with like the tree line. And then if you want to do details in the foreground, that's where you would put it in. So you want to like envision you reaching into the landscape. The furthest thing that you can touch is the thing that you're going to paint first. And then you just layer on top from there. Okay.
Sounds great.
I will also say that these are not, how do I say this? These are rules that are meant to be broken. They are a basic structure for you to understand how to go about painting a painting. But especially in watercolor, sometimes things are wet. Sometimes you're waiting for something to dry. And so at that point, it maybe makes more sense to do something than, like, for example, I'll probably do my moon last, even though that's not the closest element to me. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I'm doing it last is because I'm just going to use bleed proof white for it. And then that way I can just use bleed proof white for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not an issue.
Non-issue. All right. So since I'm using bleed proof white, I'm not going to mask off my moon. You're free to use masking fluid to mask off your moon if you want. The only thing I'm going to put in is my horizon line here. Okay. That's it. Now I will say that because we're transferring this image, which is pretty detailed, to a really small sheet of paper, this is like 2 by 4 essentially. I'm not going to try and capture the amount of detail that's in this photograph on here because that's going to be really, really tricky. I'm going to have to use like the tiniest little brushes. And frankly, ain't nobody got time for that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So don't be afraid to take a photograph and simplify it. What am I trying to capture in this painting? For me, I really love the color of the sky. I love the white moon. And I love the yellow-green foreground with like that shadowed green horizon. Those are the elements that I'm trying to capture in this painting. And everything else, I don't really have to worry about. So don't be afraid to edit. That's going to be the easiest thing for you to do when you're trying to capture a photograph in a painting is to clean out or reduce a lot of the detail that our brain kind of gets stuck on. Okay, well, let's just go for it. I have my horizon line drawn. So for my sky, near the horizon, it's more of a peachy pink. And then near the top, it kind of leans a little purple. You see that?
Yeah.
I am currently obsessed with opera pink and cobalt together, so I'm going to use that for my purpley color. Are you kidding? Already, I'm like, this painting is a success.
And we're done.
And we're done. Okay, now I'm going to grab more pink. Stunning. Rinse my brush, and then I'm going to start thinking about do I want to warm up my pink a little bit? And maybe that was too much pink and or too much warmth. And honestly, if that happens, I just blend it out. It's not the end of the world. With watercolor, especially, just taking a damp brush and smearing some color around, you're going to be fine. Oh, I love it. I'm going to do one more layer just because I want it to feel like it's not bright sunny outside. When it's bright sunny outside, the sky is more vibrant, more transparent. When I'm trying to show that there's not as much light in the landscape, I do like more layers to create a darker value sky. And that is telling my viewer that it's not bright daylight. So I'm going to use the same color mixtures, Cobalt and Opera Pink up here. And if you're feeling edgy, don't be afraid of a little bit of like Cobalt strong. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Just continue to bring that down. And then I'm going to grab more Opera Pink, maybe a tiny touch of like cad yellow or Hansa yellow, any kind of yellow. And also, if you want the pink part to be a little bit dusty, you would bring in the purple down into that pink part, because the yellow of the warmth and then the purple are going to kind of neutralize, creating more of a dusty color. That feels better to me. Oh, already, I'm loving this. Okay, now I'm going to take like undersea green or like a darker green. So I'm going to mix indigo with some green if I can find some green on my palette, because I'm going for that like dark green kind of color. And right here on my horizon, I'm just going to touch that in there. And it's going to spread, and we're going to be okay with that, because that's the beauty of watercolor, is that it does a lot of the work for us. And our goal is not to like strong arm watercolor into doing what we want it to do. The goal with watercolor is a collaboration. You know, what am I bringing to this table, and then how can I embrace what's already happening on my page or what watercolor wants to do naturally, so then we can work together to create something maybe even better than what I was envisioning in my head. Sometimes worse. Okay, and then I want to like let that dry for a second. Now I will say that with this wet on wet technique where I touched it, the paint bled in a way that kind of reminds me more of like fuzzy grass than maybe like bushy round trees. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what we can do is we can try and add some texture that will lean towards the texture that we're trying to recreate in our photograph. So if I take like a round brush, and instead of just touching along the line here, I'm going to maybe do some little roundish dots. It's still going to fuzz out, but it's just going to kind of round off my shapes a little bit. So then it doesn't feel so like stringy.
Mm.
The other thing that we can do is we did our initial wash of this. We let it bleed. It's going to be beautiful. And then after that has dried, we can go in and kind of shape it a little bit more. Okay.
All right.
Which I think is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to leave that and be like, that's fine. You're doing a really good job. Now I'm going to paint the rest of the ground. And again, I'm not too concerned about trying to get it to be super like an exact replication of this reference. I'm going to take some Q Gold mixed with Phthalo, because that gives me like a warm, brighter green. And I'm going to start to put in the ground. I'm going to let the yellow be more the color that's closest to the bottom of my page. And then kind of as it works its way back, I'm going to add more of that like brighter green. Okay, you see that?
Hmm.
Now this is our initial wash, so we're going to let that like chill for a second before we try and do anything else. And the reason for that is at this point, I want to start thinking about adding in different values to start to create dimension or depth within my painting. But when everything is wet like this, the more values that I add, it's just going to evenly disperse out, and it's probably going to push the color into my sky more. And I actually want the majority of my painting to be this sky. So I want to kind of control that. And so I'm going to let that dry. our painting is dry. And so when I go ahead and layer on top of this, it's going to stay wherever I put the paint because it's dry. So let's start with kind of shaping our back trees a little bit. So I'm just going to go off of what's here. Originally, I believe my horizon line was here, but you see how much higher that is?
Hmm.
That's not a big deal. I'm just going to move my horizon line a bit, or you can keep it down here. It's up to you. And that could be like background mountains or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to do some like roundish little hints, trees, shape that a little bit. So I'm not trying to cover that light green wash completely. I'm allowing that to be above this kind of tree line. Okay. And then let's take some of that green color, phthalo blue and Q gold, and I'm just going to start to kind of swoop in on the left. Now, this is where I can make some decisions where it's just like in my reference photo, there is an obvious kind of like little hill here, right?
Hmm.
I can try and put that in if I want. I'm not too concerned about that. Um, if you want to put it in, how we communicate hills is basically the direction of our brushstroke and then also the values. Okay. So if I wanted to communicate like a hill right here, I would need to put like a lighter value on the highlight of the ridge, which is where that light is hitting the very top of the hill, and then swoop down. Should I just do it? Let's just do it.
Let's just do it.
It's probably easier if like when I was putting in my ground, if I was like looking at this, but let's just go for it. Let's see if I can bring it back. So I'm going to swoop this way.
Sure, it would have been easier, but no one put Sarah Cray in a box.
Of course it would be easier, but I don't like doing things the easy way. Let me try and teach you the complicated way of how to do things. Okay, so just by putting in this brushstroke at this angle with a darker value, we're getting a feel for that ground. Do you see that?
Hmm.
So then on the other side, we would just want to acknowledge that it kind of goes down on the other side. So I'm just going to do a quick little swoop. I don't want to do crazy darker value over here because then this no longer looks like it swoops up. If this side is not a different value or different brush direction, then it's all going to look even and flat. So I'm just going to kind of leave that side alone. And what we can do here is I really love also how in this photo, there's like this peachy pink grass where that light is hitting it. And I can acknowledge that just a tiny bit, opera pink, and a little bit of like yellow, whatever yellow you have. Now, because we already have green grass on here, this is not going to be a bright color. And that's okay. I don't really want it to be a bright color. I just kind of want to acknowledge that whatever color is happening in the sky is also happening a little bit on my ground. Just like that. And then, of course, like let's say you put a color in and you're like, no, just lift it right out. Like it's not a big deal at all. I like the hint of warmth, so I'm going to leave that in there. You can also do hints of purple if you want. Like this is where we can play with our own painting and leave a reference behind of just being like, yeah, what happens if I were to do a little bit of cobalt, a little bit of opera pink, a little bit of that lavendery color in there? Pretty things, let me tell you that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to think about the last like kind of finishing details. So I want to put in some white wildflowers right here in the foreground. I think that would be nice. I do think I want to put in this little pathway that's on the left-hand side. I think that would help kind of place planes. And then I'm going to put in my moon. And all of those things are going to be done using bleed proof white. So first, let's take a liner brush and we can just do like these little wildflowers right here. Now, because they're in my foreground, this is where they're going to be the biggest. If you want to put wildflowers anywhere else in your painting, that's totally fine. But you need to think about how those flowers are going to get tinier and tinier the further they are in the painting. So if I wanted to put some on this ridge, they would have to be like almost like lines, like horizontal lines instead of these roundish flower shapes. Okay. And then I'm going to take bleed proof white. I'm going to mix that with some brown just to get like a road color, but I don't want it to be bright white because the road is in the distance. And if I were to do the road bright white, it would bring it to the foreground because of how light that value is. So I want to keep the value kind of more medium, but enough that you can see it. Let's try that. Okay, you see that?
Mhm.
And then now I'm thinking like, okay, my little ridge kind of evened out in value. Let's put some good texture on there. Take a darker green, whatever dark green you want. Again, just kind of following that little ridge line. There we go. And then we're going to just put in our moon. So I'm going to put the moon right up here. Trying to do it in the center. You don't have to though. How do I say this? Most of the time, if something is the main subject, you don't want it directly in the middle of your painting because it's hard compositionally to balance it after that. But because we have the element of the ground, I think it's okay if we put something in the middle, but it needs to be directly in the middle. You either want it to be super intentional in the middle or super intentional off to the side. If it's like slightly off, people would be like, you know what I'm saying?
What's happening here?
What is happening? So I'm just going to eyeball. You can measure it if you want. Oh, look at what that moon does.
Yeah,
Isn't that cool?
it's perfect.
Okay, one other, and this is where like we can start playing with um like how do I like how the colors turned out. I think I actually want, I mean, I really love how the foreground is like really warm, but I think I want the background to be a bit more like blue leaning than that bright green. And this is where personal preference is really going to come into play because color choices so much have to do with who you are as an artist. Everybody is going to lean towards different color palettes. They're going to resonate with them differently. I mean, think of the work between like when you think of Van Gogh, he used bright oranges and blues a lot, you know. Monet used lots of purples and all of that kind of stuff. So different artists are going to have different relationships with color. And so I don't want you to look at this and say, "Oh, I'm just going to do whatever Sarah is doing." I instead want you to say, "What resonates with me? Do I like warm paintings? Do I like cool paintings? Do I like hot pinks or do I like bright golds?" And see if you can add those elements into your painting because that is what is going to make it unique. And that's how you can put your own artistic voice in anything that you paint. A little warmer. Well, now I'm thinking maybe I should put some orange in. I love orange in a landscape. I don't know what it is. I
Mhm.
just love it. So I'm going to use Q Burnt Orange. And just know that like with every layer of color that you put in, you're going to be darkening the value, which I'm fine with. I don't really care. Okay. I like some dry brush too. Yeah, that feels really good. And then maybe I'll do, I know that I don't think this was in the reference, but at this point, this is me just kind of like going for it. Let's do some trees on that side. Yep, that feels really good. Maybe shape some of these a little bit more. Okay. And then let's just do some foreground grass. I'm going to use a liner. You want to use a darker value to kind of stand out from this golden white. So you can do a little like grass coming in between the flowers. maybe a hint that the grass kind of continues on. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're good.
It's lovely.
And the fun thing about doing these tiny little paintings like this is, gosh, it's been what? Maybe 20 minutes. Maybe 20 minutes. I have a cute, tiny little landscape. I played with color. I did all of these things. And it's just like a quick way for you guys to, one, just paint and to experiment. You can do one, and maybe you're like, well, I don't actually know what color I like. I'm just starting. Totally normal. The only way you're going to learn is if you try different colors. So maybe you do this same thing and you do one that leans really warm. So that's where you're going to be picking up more yellows and oranges and reds or pinks. And then maybe you do one that's more cool. So that's going to be more purples and blues and like blue greens. And you can see how you feel when they're done. And the more that you kind of explore that and play with that, the more you're going to see what's going to resonate with you. The other thing that you can do in order to figure out what type of paintings you love or colorways is go to a museum, look through an art book. Notice that when you're drawn to a painting, ask yourself, why am I being drawn to this painting? What is resonating with me within me because I'm looking at this? Is it the use of this color? Is it how moody it feels? Is it how vibrant and active it feels? And when you start to pay attention to those elements, you will then know what you can bring into your own work because you know that that's calling to your inner artist. Okay?
Okay.
Let's remove the tape and put it in the frame because, like, that's the best part. Okay, this is actually totally giving me like Wicked vibes,
Oh, yeah, I could see it.
isn't it?
Yeah. The Emerald City.
Emerald City, Glinda, and Elphaba, like the green and the pink purple. I'm like, hello. Okay. Carefully peel away. This is where you see if I taped straight or not. Can get a little crooked, but that's okay. Then you're going to take your cute little frame, put your painting in it. I like to have my painting be smaller so you can see that there is a clear edge around it. And there we go.
It's so cute.
Tell me that's not so cute.
I can't even.
So cute. Okay. I hope you guys have fun with this. I hope that you can see that you are absolutely capable of taking a reference photo and not only trying to recreate it, but allow yourself to have your own voice with it. Okay. Don't feel like you have to look at a reference photo and include every element, look at colors and match them exactly. That's not it. It's more just like, what is the spark that gets me to paint so then I can express myself? And that's what we're looking for here. With tiny paintings, they're a perfect way for you to practice all of these things without committing to this huge page, which usually just takes more time. And they're just cute. Okay.
They're super
Like,
cute.
let's just make cute things. What is wrong with that? We're going to list every supplies that I use in the description if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for painting with us. It's always a blast. We'll see you next time.